Good evening, very good evening to ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of the Society of Geoscientists and Allied Technologies, extend a hearty welcome to all of you to this 6th episode of the Distinguished Lecture Series, which is one of the flagship programs of the Society. The name of the topic is Clean Energy Transition, and the chief attraction of this evening, our distinguished speaker, is none other than Padma Vibhushan Dr. Anil Kakodkar, a widely acclaimed name in the country who strongly believes that India should be self-reliant in nuclear power. With this backdrop, it's my privilege to invite Sri Girija Prasad Mahapatra, our DLS committee chairman, to briefly introduce the concept of DLS to the august audience. Sri Mahapatra, please.
Thank you, sir. Good evening to all of you, President Dr. Anil Kakodkar. So let me have the honor to just tell something brief about the DLS, that is the Distinguished Lecture Series. Since inception of SGAT has endeavored to promote mineral development activities in India through symposia, seminar, workshop, and interactive meets, publications of journals, books, and informative brochures. In view to achieve one of its goals, SGAT came out with a bi-monthly virtual Distinguished Lecture Series DLS since March 2021, with the guidance and inspiration of its president, by inviting eminent scientists in the field of geoscience and allied subjects. In the first of its series, we were honored by Professor Pantelis Saupias, Department of Geosciences, King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals, Saudi Arabia, with a specialization of application of geophysical methods for environmental, hydrogeological, and engineering application and geohazard studies, which was streamed on 12th March 2021 on the theme Engineering Geophysics in Urban Planning and Environment. Professor K.C. Sahu, former HOD Department of Earth Science, IIT Mumbai, and leading exponent in environmental geology in India, have worked on heavy metal pollution around mining and mineral wells and water resources. And he's based the second deliberations on heavy metal pollution of environment with examples of an arsenic episode in Gangetic Delta, chromium pollution from Sukinda chromides on 15th May 2021. Dr. Vibhuti Bhushan Mohanty, Professor Emeritus in the Department of Civil and Mineral Engineering, University of Toronto, Canada, and Distinguished Visiting Professor at IIT Kharagpur and Visiting Professor at the China University of Mining and Technology, Beijing, honored us in its third streaming program on theme Mining Technology, Safety and Economics on 24 July 2021. Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Director of National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore, and Chancellor of Terry School of Advanced Studies, and the former Secretary from Ministry of Earth Science, Government of India, President of International Geological Congress 2015-17, had the online deliberations on 6 September 21 on the theme Advance in Earth Science System Science and Their Societal Benefits. Professor Mulugeta Elena Arya, Associate Professor, Addis Ababa University, Ethiopia, Adjuncted Associate Professor, Case Western University, Avenue, Cleveland, has deliberation on the theme Volcanism, Tectonics, and Hominin Evolution in the Afar Rift, East Africa, and which was streamed on 27th November 2021. We have the honor for its 6th series to be deliberated by Dr. Anil Kakodkar. We are thankful and grateful to him. Thank you, sir. Please. Vijit.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sri Mahapatra. Now it's my proud privilege to invite our President, esteemed Professor Omkarnath Mohanty, to deliver the welcome address. Professor Mohanty, please.
Very good evening to everyone present, and particularly to the distinguished speaker of this evening, Professor Anil Kakodkar. And we are all extremely pleased and honored privilege, Dr. Kakodkar, that you have agreed to deliver this distinguished lecture on the clean energy transition. And I don't think that one can overemphasize the fact that India has come to a position where the energy options play possibly the most important roles when it comes to planning the future. More so now that the COVID has kept us on the tenterhooks when it comes to the industry and also the society, education. Practically all fields have been affected by the pandemic. And therefore, a serious position has come when we have to decide what kind of energy must we actually adopt. Yesterday or last evening, we had the privilege, some of us, of informally interacting with Dr. Kakodkar. And I think we were discussing also there that it's not just the electrical energy where the nuclear or other alternatives must be considered, but overall the energy utilization. And I have essentially been engaged in automotive sector and steel sector. And we know that going non-carbon is quite a challenge. So therefore, I'm quite sure that today's lecture is going to be quite interesting. And when the lecture is coming from the authentic voice of Dr. Anil Kakodkar, it becomes that much more accentuated. And therefore, I welcome all of you once again, and particularly Dr. Anil Kakodkar, our distinguished speaker this evening. Over to you, Sujit Babu. Back to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Now, I'm delighted to invite Dr. Rajgopal Mohanty, our senior council member, and who is very close to Dr. Kakodkar, to give a brief introduction of our chief speaker to the August gathering. Dr. Mohanty, please.
Thank you and namaskar to everyone. Speaking, Padma Vibhushan, Dr. Kakodkar doesn't need any introduction, either at national level or international. However, I feel privileged for saying few lines about him for having worked as one of his junior colleagues in the Department of Atomic Energy. Dr. Kakodkar, born in 1943 in Barwani, Madhya Pradesh, did his BE in Mechanical Engineering from Bombay University in 1963. He joined Bhabha Atomic Research Center in 1964 and rose to become Director of BARC in 1996 and Chairman Atomic Energy Commission and Secretary to the Government of India Department of Atomic Energy during 2000 to 2009. After superannuation, he was DAE Homi Bhabha Chair Professor during 2010 to 15 and INAE Satish Dhawan Chair of Engineering Eminence during 2015 to 2017. Currently, he is Chancellor Homi Bhabha National Institute as well as Chairman Rajiv Gandhi Science and Technology Commission of India. He is credited with a galore of awards, including the most prestigious civilian awards, Padma Shri in 98, Padma Vibhushan in 99, and Padma Vibhushan in 2009 for his exceptional and distinguished services in the field of science and engineering. Dr. Kakodkar has worked for the development of atomic energy program in India throughout his professional life, always driven with an objective of self-reliance in nuclear power program of the country. Undeterred by the restriction imposed by the international community, he succeeded in developing various systems for the pressurized heavy water reactor, building the Dhruva reactor, conceptualization and development of advanced heavy water reactor that realizes the next generation reactor by using thorium as the fuel, which our country, we have abundant resources. Dr. Kakodkar has been a key contributor to India's strategic program. He was amongst the chosen few involved in the first successful peaceful nuclear explosion experiment in 1974 at Pokhran just after 10 years of service. And later, he played a key role in the series of successful nuclear tests conducted in 98, again at Pokhran. India also demonstrated nuclear submarine power pack technology under his leadership. No one will ever forget his involvement and contribution in making the Indo-US nuclear deal. All these are greatly reflected in his recent book, Fire and Fury, Transforming India's Strategic Identity. Very lucidly written. It gives a strong nationalistic feeling. Those who have not read may please read. I request that please read the book. Dr. Kakodkar championed observer status for India at CERN in Europe and partnership with in the ITER, that is International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor Project, and exemption for nuclear trade from nuclear supply group, besides several international cooperation agreement in the area of nuclear power, acquisition of uranium, and nuclear research. There is hardly any aspect of India's atomic energy program that has not seen the significant impact of Kakodkar's leadership. Notable also are his innovative contributions to human resource development activities too. Establishment of NISER, that is a National Institute of Science, Education and Research here in Bhubaneswar, and DAE Mumbai University CBA, that Center for Basic Science, and SBNI, which are expected to result in a fresh wave of human resource development, particularly in basic research and technology development for the acceleration of India's multifaceted atomic energy program. A committee under his leadership has worked out a detailed report for greater autonomy of IITs and taking them to world-class level. Another committee led by him has carried out similar exercise for the NIT too. Under his chairmanship, another high-level committee has made comprehensive recommendation for improvement of safety in Indian railways, and a TIFAC Apex group led by him has brought out a technology vision 2035, which was released by the Honorable Prime Minister of India during Science Congress in 2016. Dr. Kakodkar was chairman Solar Energy Corporation in its formative stage. He was also chairman of Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics during 2006 to 2012. Chairman Governing Board, Inter-University Acceleration Center, New Delhi, and Chairman Board of Governors of the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay during 2006 to 2015. Dr. Kakodkar presently devotes his time primarily on issues related to energy, education, and societal development. He has been propagating the concept of SILAGE, that is city and village, a knowledge-based ecosystem for bridging city and village gaps for technology-enabled sustainable development in rural areas. At this age, a man never takes rest. We are, sir, extremely fortunate to have you with us this evening and listen from you. I now invite Dr. Kakodkar to kindly deliver his talk, please.
Thank you, Dr. Rajgopal Mohanty. Let me first share my screen. Just 1 minute. Has my presentation appeared?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It has appeared.
I'll make it full screen.
Right, sir.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Professor Onkar Mohanty, all colleagues of this wonderful institution, the host organization, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, let me thank the organizers for sustaining such a wonderful program that we heard, the lecture series being one of them, and more particularly inviting me to speak today. And I have chosen to speak on the energy, clean energy transition. Now, clearly this is a very broad subject, and so I will be only successful in painting a macro picture, and there are many details which I may not be in a position to deep dive given the limitation of time. But should there be any pressing questions, we can certainly take them up during the question answer session. So to start with, let us begin with this data which is available from the energy statistics which Government of India brings out every year. So we're talking about the 2021 energy statistics. And that report is a detail, and in the report towards the end, there is a Sankey diagram, which I have just captured it in the center. There are too many details to really make them visible on screen. But some important numbers I have captured, or actually derived from the data available in that report, and represent in the two tables, one on the left hand side, which talks about the primary energy, primary commercial energy. And the one on the right hand side, it talks about the data on energy use at the consumer end or demand side, as it were. Now, as we know, today our energy is primarily based on fossil energy, and we go through a lot of energy transformation. Coal, part of it is used as coal, but a larger part is used for producing electricity. Crude oil is refined to produce several petroleum products which are used for transportation, for industry, and many other sectors in the form of diesel, petrol, kerosene, naphtha, and so on and so forth. Similarly, there is thing about gas, and a small part today you derive energy through renewable energy that is solar, wind, biomass. You also derive energy from the hydro projects, both small and large, and some energy we derive out of nuclear. And all this essentially is produced in the form of electricity. And in the context of today's subject, these are the three which are very small, only 3.7% of the total primary energy, but they are without significant carbon dioxide emission. All the rest has emission burden. Of course, with gas, the burden is somewhat lower. Now, in this transformation, of course, there is some loss. So some loss in the as a part of the thermodynamic efficiency. Also, some loss as a part of the chemical or physical conversion. So on the right hand side, you see the three major sectors: the industry, the residential, agriculture, and others, and the third, the transport sector. And in each one of them, I have divided this into some energy goes as electrical energy, some energy goes as thermal energy or energy required for supporting the process. The numbers on the second column in that table, they are, however, the percentage of the total energy that we have. So it is the percentage of the 100% of the energy reflected on the left hand side, so that we can compare how much is the loss and how much we get. So we roughly around 55-56% energy gets into actual use, and out of that, something like 18-19% is electrical energy. Rest of it essentially is thermal energy. Now, in the transition that we see, clearly there has to be, if you have to reach net zero, you need a very rapid scale up of utilization of clean energy resources. And in the transition, I believe that the emphasis on gas economy would also help, because this transition is going to be quite challenging. And on the supply side or the demand side, essentially the energy would be delivered in three forms: the electricity, the heat energy, and some of it derived from biomass. Could be a combination, a variety of things, and I'll want to talk more about this. And so that's the major challenge before all of us. Now, going forward, obviously things are not going to remain same, because there will be going to be a huge shift in the energy on the supply side. And of course, you have to decarbonize it all the way up to the user end. So qualitatively, it is my assessment that the residential and agricultural sector, which currently uses 31% of the total energy being used on the demand side, on the supply side, now that will have to be essentially in the form of electricity and bioenergy, in my view. I wouldn't consider hydrogen to start with here, because that's an evolving technology and there could be some safety issues. And on the other hand, numbers would tell us that country has sufficient bioenergy, may not be as a part of commercial energy, but as a part of the traditional energy, the firewood, the animal dung, and so on, which in my view can be beneficially used for meeting the requirements of kitchens, meeting the requirements of agricultural sector, even for running agricultural machinery by way of compressed biogas or compressed natural gas, that is bio-CNG, or for that matter, one could also think of ethanol, but different forms of using bioenergy. And they are all clean. They don't add to any net additional CO2 burden. And they can meet the requirements of clean cooking fuel, both in urban as well as rural areas. And we should recognize that this is best utilized in the form of decentralized energy, because that is the specialty, converting biomass to bioenergy. You can't think of a large place like a huge refinery, because there are issues about logistics and all, and it's very profitably done in the form of a decentralized use. I think same thing is true in the form of electricity production, leveraging renewable energy. Solar energy is primarily decentralized, and it is best used in a decentralized mode. And this actually fits in well with the rural economy. So we should, both policy and technology thrust, we should move towards making a good match between the needs of residential and agriculture sector, and meet those needs through electricity as well as bioenergy. If we talk about the industrial sector, which is roughly 57% of the total energy at the supply end or the user end, the important energy forms for delivery are electricity, and I think hydrogen will become very important here, but also hydrocarbons and coal would probably continue to play an important role. And in a net zero transition or situation, we'll need to back it up with the carbon capture and utilization technology. So that's a major focus. And how much coal or hydrocarbon can be used depends on how successful we are on these technologies. Talking about transport sector, today it is entirely on hydrocarbons, and tomorrow it is going to be entirely on electricity as far as the smaller vehicles or shorter endurance vehicles, city transport vehicles are concerned. But I think for the heavier vehicles and for cross-country transport, hydrogen-powered fuel cell-driven electric vehicles would be more popular, and they are likely to be more economical. So that's the broad transformation that I see. Now, let us look at this aspect of green energy transformation. I think it requires a much deeper dive than one may think on the face of it. And I'll explain that in this slide. Now, we all know that India has committed to reach net zero emission by 2070 at the Glasgow meeting. Now, by the time India can be expected to surpass, by that time, that is 2070, India can be expected to surpass annual per capita energy consumption level that is necessary for India to be on par with the best in the world as far as quality of life, human development index, and such parameters are concerned. Now, the threshold per capita energy consumption that we can see on the chart in the right hand top corner, this is for the current situation, or we can say business as usual. Now, we surely expect in clean energy transition that the efficiencies would improve as a result of clean energy transition. And so the energy corresponding to that transition from the low human development index to a saturated high human development index, that number, which in the chart is shown as 2,400 kilogram oil equivalent per person, total energy. That I think accounting for the improved efficiency, in my view, could come to around 1,400 kilogram oil equivalent per person. But that multiplied by the stabilized population that India could have at that time could amount to a total energy requirement of around 28,000 terawatt hours per year. Now, if you want to reach there by 2070, that is 31 years from where we are at present, that turns out to be a compound annual growth rate of around 4.78%, which I think will happen. So these numbers, I think, will get realized as we move forward. Now, the current energy that we have, what we use in the country, 1 minute, is around 6,580 terawatt hours per year. So we will have to go from there to 28,000 terawatt hours per year. Now, this is on the demand side. How much is the supply available? So let's look at renewable energy first. There is an excellent paper by Professor Sukhatme, and he did this over a period of time. It went through an iteration to work out, but it's not very easy. But he had estimated that the total renewable energy potential in India is around 5,850 terawatt hours per year, which is way short of 28,000 terawatt hours per year. Now, in that paper, the biomass is accounted to be around only 60 terawatt hour per year. But today, there is a much larger horizon. First is, as I said, there is this non-commercial energy. Then there is a surplus agricultural residue, which can be addressed because of the 2G technologies. And and then MSW, and also I will show you later on a detailed tabulation. But my assessment is there is around 2,500 terawatt hours of bioenergy. And that's why I said that we should leverage that for the rural agricultural segment. But even putting both these things together, we are way short of 28,000 terawatt hours. And what is the other non-emitting energy source that is left for us? That's only nuclear. So I think it is very important that the nuclear program is taken more seriously, and measures taken to enhance its performance and delivery at a very fast pace. Here are the details about the bioenergy. I will not go into very detail, but I have given the references for each one of them: the firewood, the sustainable part of firewood, animal dung, surplus agricultural residue, and municipal solid waste. Now, we don't want to use this in the way it has been used traditionally, which creates air quality problem in kitchens and health problem for women and all. I think we must address biomass and its conversion to bioenergy using modern technologies and produce clean fuel. Could be CBG, could be bio-CNG, could be bioethanol, and things of that kind, and develop a whole energy system. And particularly when we are so much dependent on imports, our energy import bill is very large. And one of the offshoot of net zero would be we can't use the fossil energy, and that means we can at least get rid of that import. And if we can meet our energy needs domestically, then we achieve both the things. We become self-reliant on energy, but also we have utilization of clean energy and meet the zero emission goal. So in that context, what are the mega trends that are noticeable? To me, the mega trends that are noticeable are the following. Now, the energy consumption rate, the total energy consumption would obviously increase because we are on a development path. And this would increase at a rate our economy or economic growth will support. But the clean energy consumption would need to increase much more. For example, the energy, total energy consumption may go up 4 to 5 times, but the clean energy consumption has to go up something like 80 times. And this faster we'll go, faster we'll reach net zero. But for India, it is a much bigger challenge. The increase has to come primarily from renewable, including bioenergy and nuclear, as I said. Now, except biomass, all other clean energy sources, they first produce electricity. And that's an important factor we must take into account in our planning and policy making. Now, as I said, at the user side, we require electricity, but electricity is not everything. We require energy for industry, energy for transportation, which of course, a good part of it can be done by electricity, but will also require hydrogen, for example. So now, earlier we used to use other forms of commercial or primary energy, convert it to electricity and use. Now it may be that we'll have to use clean energy to produce electricity and produce other forms of electricity for use in other sectors, including demands beyond electricity. Now, in that context, we should recognize that solar thermal and high temperature nuclear reactor, they can produce hydrogen without going through electricity route. Of course, they can produce hydrogen through steam electrolysis using electricity. But I think a more efficient way would be to use the high temperature heat and produce hydrogen by splitting water through thermochemical route. But that's a matter of technology development, which must be addressed very quickly. And there is some development going on, but it's more at the laboratory scale. And today, the most advanced way of producing hydrogen is to use electrolysis. But that has its own attendant cost, in my view. Now, this would mean that share of electricity for use as electricity, which itself will go up, but also using electricity for production in other uses. For example, transport will be an additional consumption of electricity. And going forward, if you want to produce hydrogen and we have to use electricity, then that will be another demand on electricity. So it looks to me that share of electricity would go up from present around 18% to around 35% if hydrogen is produced through thermochemical splitting, as I mentioned. But if we are using electricity for producing hydrogen, then in my assessment, the share of electricity in the total energy may go up as much as 80%. And this is a major aspect that we should note in the green or the clean energy transition. Now, the need for an optimum mix of electricity generating system, as I told you, renewable energy is nowhere going to be sufficient for meeting our requirement because of this larger share of electricity. And though we'll require to use all forms of electricity, and we'll have to work out a proper optimum mix which gives the maximum economic benefit to the country. And that is a challenge. And many people in our country have not thought through sufficiently, in my view. So let me explain this. The figure on the right-hand side top is from the OECD report. And of course, these numbers are based on a study done at MIT. And it actually shows, it's a 3-axis diagram. Vertical axis is the price of electricity to be paid by the consumer. And the two horizontal axes are on one side axis, you have the carbon emission constraint. That is, what is the kilogram CO2 emitted per kilowatt hour produced. And on the other horizontal axis is the proportion between nuclear and variable renewable energy. And closer to the origin, it is 100% variable renewable energy and near zero emission. And if you notice this figure, there is a peak there. If at that point the cost goes up substantially, and it has to do with the total investment one has to make for capacity, taking into account the variability of renewable energy. And of course, you have to also take into account the variability of demand, the daily load curve and the like. Now, so see, in this figure, there is a plateau away from that origin. And there, these things are not very sensitive. So today we are not reached there. And so everybody feels that renewable energy, first of all, there is a mistaken notion that there is sufficient renewable energy. And they all feel it is all very cheap and so will go on. And the whole country is moving on that direction. And I think we need to recognize that, first of all, there is not enough renewable energy. And also 100% renewable energy means the tariff can go up. And in this study done for a New England region in United States, the estimate was tariff could become twice the optimum tariff. And in the China, TBT region in China, it can become 4 times the optimum tariff. And for the optimum point, the share of nuclear in USA is around 60%, and in China is around 80%. So that will give an indication of the magnitude of problem that we are talking about. Now, it's not that we are not seeing signs of this. We are already seeing signs of this. So I'll just read the text on the left-hand side. The current situation in India. At the current level of variable renewable energy penetration, which is 24.7% installed capacity and 10.7% generation, a recent report of Forum of Regulators, it's a CEA body, it brings out that surplus stranded capacity and resultant cost, which is in the range of rupees 1 rupee 34 paise per unit, which is already being paid now, and going forward it may be higher. Now, in addition, further the cost of balancing renewables has been estimated to be in the range of rupees 1 rupee 10 paise per unit by Central Electricity Authority. And in addition, the stranded capacity cost, incremental fixed charge, estimated on account of renewable energy integration is in the range of 1 rupee 2 paise. So something like 2 rupees 12 paise or more, that kind of a burden the electricity buyer is already facing even today with the current level of renewable energy generation. So I think we need to do these studies very carefully for the interest of the country, because we are a poor country. Now, the key elements of suggested sustainable clean energy transition, or what kind of policy we should adopt, what should be the key elements for such a policy. In my view, we should recognize that electricity, hydrogen, and bioenergy, they will be the key feeders for meeting the electricity demand. As I said, we must reserve the compressed biogas for cooking energy, bio-CNG for running agricultural machinery, and strengthen rural economy. And we can leverage something like 2,500 terawatt hour per year in this mode. But I think this has to be driven by policy. Left to itself, it will not get driven. And then we may have distortion in the energy systems. We should emphasize decentralized renewables for rural and remote areas through microgrids interconnected to the main grid. I already said this. We should develop and deploy solar, thermal, and high temperature nuclear reactors for hydrogen production through thermochemical splitting of water. And I must mention that this is not a small size. Out of around 28,000 terawatt hours that I mentioned, something like 15,000 terawatt hours may be required for producing hydrogen or green hydrogen, green ammonia, or such green fuels. And so it's a big thing, and we are at the moment at zero. So there is a major thing that need to be caught up, and we should very systematically plan this activity. Electricity generation, of course, we have to augment based on an optimum mix of renewables, hydro, and nuclear. And this could be as large as something like 10,000 terawatt hours per year or more. Notice this itself is around 6 times the present electricity system that we have or we're operating currently. And then we'll require still some balanced fossil fuel. And if we want to use that, then you will need carbon capture and utilization. Now, you of course require technology at the supply end, but you also require technology at the use end. And there are several new technologies, and I'll mention a few important ones. For example, to produce hydrogen, as I said, using electricity, because that seems to be the front runner. But that rather than using the low temperature electrolysis, where you have to spend more energy, we need to go in for steam electrolysis using ceramic technology. The SOFC technology, which is for the fuel cell, operated in reverse, becomes the electrolysis technology. But we need to develop that. It's available in the market on a small scale. But as I said, we need to talk about it on a very large scale. So there is work to do. Thermochemical splitting of water, and particularly if you use reactor, I believe one can use radiolysis to produce hydrogen. And that is another area where a lot of development is required. Everybody is talking about battery as an important development aspect, which is important. But I do believe that thermal storage is going to be much cheaper, and thermal storage along with solar thermal, or for that matter, even nuclear, could be a very important means to develop. And in this country, we are not paid much attention on that count. Production of hydrocarbon substitutes using hydrogen and biomass is going to be another important area, because how this will happen going forward, time only will tell. But the entire petrochemical industry, which is supported on the fossil crude oil, mineral oil, maybe I think all those areas where you don't get emission, that will certainly we can continue to use, and we should use that. But we can also derive a lot of chemicals using biomass. And in fact, you can derive hydrogen using biomass. And of course, I mentioned about the carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration. Now, decarbonization means a lot of cost. Just to get an idea about how much is that cost likely to be, we should recognize that today our electricity system is around 1,600 billion units. That is the kind of our system today. Now, in United States, their system is around 4,000 billion units. And for decarbonizing US power grid rapidly, a consultant who was given this job has estimated $4.5 trillion to decarbonize a system around 4,000 billion units size. The German system is even smaller. German system is 650 billion units. And the country is spending something like 580 billion US dollars to overall Germany's energy system. Now, in India, we are at 1,600 billion units. And considering our development and growth, economic growth, we need to move something like 3 to 4 times larger in the business as usual mode itself. And as I said, the electricity system would need to go up even further in the net zero scenario. So $4.5 trillion for 4,000 billion units. And as I said, 28,000 billion units. Find out how much will be the burden that, and can India afford? So decarbonization is easily said. Somebody will say we'll arrange international finance loan, but ultimately we'll have to pay this back. So we need solutions where the investments are a minimum, and that is the point I want to drive. Now, with that, I come to the last part of my talk. So let me talk about nuclear. Now, we, as we all know, in India, we are a self-reliant country as far as nuclear technology is concerned. And we have, for example, developed this PHWR technology, which is one of the best in the world. They have actually been recognized by way of awards for globally best performance in terms of non-stop run. Our power plants have run for 2 years, 3 years, several times. And more than 1 year continuous operation, they have done it maybe 25, 30 or even more number of times. So they have been recognized globally for that. And we produce this at half the cost compared to the specific capital cost of nuclear units made in industrially advanced countries. The capital cost of our systems is just half. And so I think it makes sense in leveraging domestic capability, but we must accelerate the deployment. That is where we have a lot to do. So we need speedier and cost competitive capacity addition as we approach net zero. Government of India has approved the fleet mode construction for 700 megawatt PHWRs. So we must speed up that construction and enhance the program. There are 15 PHWR units of 700 megawatts under construction right now, but we must enhance it by taking up additional 4 fleets or 3 more fleets of 10 more units of 700 megawatts. Because as I said, they are the cheapest in terms of capital cost and globally competitive performance. We must also expedite plant capacity addition through imported light water reactors. We have negotiations which were done with the Americans, with the French, Russians. Of course, the capacity addition is taking place, but it should also take place along with the American program and the French program. And we should pursue even export of our systems, because when you get into industry, it requires a major industrial activity, and that requires balancing. And being an export market, it also puts a stamp of quality, and also it allows you to balance the industrial operation so that industrial capacity can be continuously kept fully loaded. And of course, there are a large number of thermal power plants which may get retired as a part of, because they're getting old, their life is over, and of course by 2070 most of the plants will have to be shut down. Now these sites can be very easily made use of. They can't be made use of for the large reactors because their siting is more complex. But we should develop within the country. Actually, we should co-develop along with the industry partners, the small and medium reactors, which can be located at any site, and leverage the sites which will be made available by or vacated by the retiring coal plants, and add capacity. And that SMR stream is something that we should be adding. So let me move on. Now, that is for rapid capacity addition, because that's the need of the hour. But we need to carry on with our development program. We need to, because right now the challenge is a rapid decarbonization, but ultimately we'll have to find energy, not just in 2070, but for all time to come. And as I mentioned to you, there is not much energy other than nuclear. And of course, the renewable energy would probably be available at the same level, but our energy requirements will go. So we should continue with the 3-stage program, the fast reactors, the thorium reactors, but we should also develop the high temperature reactors, which I said for the purpose of supporting hydrogen production. So these new technologies, they have to be taken up at an accelerated pace as we approach net zero, because it's required for our long-term energy security. And in the same breath, I would say we should pursue three-stage nuclear power program, but we should also pursue the fusion energy program, because it will become important at some stage. Now, I don't want to spend too much of time, but just want to make you aware that, for example, India and China, at some stage we were comparable. Our populations are comparable. Our development process was more or less concurrent. But today, China has crossed the threshold for the minimum energy that is required to get high human development index. We are at least a factor of 4 below that. And similarly, in many other parameters, the capacity for nuclear, capacity for renewable, biomass energy, hydro energy, everywhere. If you say what is the balance per capita energy that we require to between these two countries to reach that 2,400 kilogram oil equivalent threshold, we have a huge margin to cover. And as I said, China is already covered. So we have the world's largest energy deficit to cover, and China's progress in non-fossil energy towards green energy transition is actually significantly better than us. And I think as Indians, we must tighten our belts, and we can't be left out, because after all, we are competing for the same basket, same resources. And if we don't act fast, we will be simply left out, as can be seen in the graph and the left-hand side bottom, where the share of primary energy from low carbon resources, look at where world is, look at where China is, and look at where India is. So we have a lot of catching up to do. And I think in doing so, since I'm talking to the geoscientist community, and in this transition, we have to also recognize the need for minerals. A different set of minerals will become important, whether it is for wind, it is for solar, whether it is for the fusion energy, high temperature reactors. Everywhere you'll find a new materials will be required. And the thing which worries me that we are at close to 0.0, and we have the largest gap to cover. And I think it is up to the Indian scientific community to really organize itself well and deliver this big national challenge. And I'm sure in India, if a challenge is posed, the Indian young people have always delivered it. This is what Dr. Bhabha used to say. Our problem is we don't provide challenge to young people. And you look at what they are doing in the context of startups and all, you challenge them and they start delivering. So I think we should take up this net zero and create a major national challenge. And I'm sure the country would succeed. With that, I thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, very much. Hello.
I will.
Yes. Yeah, I think we should.
I will take out the presentation.
Yeah. Before we go to the presentation, sir, we have a question answer session now.
Yeah, but I can remove the presentation. I can remove the slides.
The presentation out. That's what he's telling. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Kakodkar, you can remove your presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Thank you, sir, for a nice presentation, informative, and in fact, whatever is left finally to the young youth India or the young scientists to deliver, because it's definitely challenging for all of us to have to reach the net zero carbon emission. So challenge is big, But there are certain questions, some clear clarity to be. Many people have, few people have given that we can go one by one, sir. Dr.
Yeah,
Rajendra?
I request all the participants to make use of this chat box only for seeking any clarifications on anything that Dr. Kakodkar delivered. So, and Dr. Rajgopal Mohanty will be the person who is going to moderate the entire question and answer session. And in case there is any technical glitch at his end, Mr. Das, our senior council member, can take over also. Dr. Rajgopal Mohanty, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, very much. One question was raised by Mr. Rajendra Kode from Nagpur. He is saying the sheer waste of organic carbon which should go back to the soil. Our soils are now depleted of carbon. Best way to use biomass briquettes. People do not know the cost of this organic matter and agri-waste besides resides. We are sort of fodder. So he's giving a comment about the use of biomass. That's what his comment is.
Yeah, no, I think that's clearly very important. So you would have noticed when I use the term, for example, I call it surplus agricultural biomass. Not so. I think you require biomass to kind of take that organic carbon into the soil in variety of ways. For example, you digest biomass, you can create manure which can go to the soil, or you can process biomass and create biochar, and biochar also can be used as as soil conditioner. And this point is absolutely right that the first priority for biomass should be for soil conditioning, and that has been the numbers I have cited, that surplus biomass is after we account for using it for the soil conditioning. Yes. That point is absolutely right.
Right, sir. And Dr. C.O. Prasad Rao, he says if hydrogen has to become a major energy source, that it needs to be produced from seawater using solar energy. So how far it is practical and cost effective? That's what he is trying to know.
Well, today it is clearly not cost competitive, but that is where the technology challenge lies. We have to make electricity cheaper, but we have to also make it energy efficient. So that's why I said a thermochemical route, if you succeed, I think the cost will come down significantly. So, but today there is everywhere there is challenge. There is challenge in battery. There is challenge in the production of hydrogen, and that is the challenge for technology people. Technology and entrepreneurship, both there is a challenge.
Says Mr. He says, so what are our plans? CCS without carbon tax, would it be possible to shift towards cleaner energy mix?
Can you repeat that again? There's a sound problem.
She says, what are our plans for CCS studies, like clean carbon?
Studies?
So without carbon tax, he's talking to carbon tax.
Right.
No,
that is true. But, this is also a tough challenge. It's not that carbon dioxide is not utilized. To some extent, it is utilized, but there is issue of the quantity, the total amount of carbon dioxide that we have to utilize or sequester is much larger than the level of use currently. And secondly, of course, there is a cost again, because you fix carbon dioxide, that cost will come on the energy system to which that carbon dioxide is related. And and there are new ways. For example, people are talking about uh, artificial photosynthesis, creating that leaf and things like that. When that happens, that may happen. But today they are all in the laboratory curiosity stage. But this is a big challenge. This is a big challenge worldwide. And there are some, for example, there are small plants have been set up where they take up carbon dioxide from flue gas, and through a process of gas phase fermentation, you convert that into ethanol, carbon dioxide conversion into ethanol. So these are some demonstration scale work is going on right within the country. But there is the miles to go. But that's the direction to just because it is expensive, people are not going to allow us to keep emitting carbon dioxide in atmosphere, because there will be ban by law, international law. There will be ban now by after 2070 or 2050 or whatever. A lot of international politics will play around, but it's clear that beyond a particular date, one cannot say that I can't. It is very expensive, so I will not follow that route. You have to pay that money, and so we should develop technologies to make it cheaper. That's the way to look at it.
Thank you, sir. Dr. O. Prasad Rao is asking about the Indo-US nuclear deal. Is it possible to increase nuclear power generation capacity without reviving it?
Well, the Indo-US deal is there. For example, India has been able to import a lot of uranium. It's because we have this international collaboration in place. Of course, even domestic uranium production has gone up quite a bit. So all that can be leveraged. We can also leverage that for technology. Unfortunately, the initial discussion for the AP1000s and the EPRs to be constructed, they have got stalled. I do hope that the momentum will get picked up soon enough. Of course, the Russian VVR systems are, 2 units are operating, 4 units are under construction. So some progress there, but we must make rapid progress. So it's not, see, the issue is the following. We have that mindset of importing from elsewhere. Now, as I told you, you get these things from outside, it becomes twice as expensive. So you should leverage our international cooperation in a manner where there is maximum value addition done within the country, and that is what will make it competitive. Somehow our mindset is we just want to import, and that's a non-starter, and that is why things have been delayed. I think we should quickly learn this and start. That's why I said we should start exporting, because if we start exporting, there will be that give and take, and there will be momentum in the activity, and the international cooperation arrangements are in place. But if we keep our old mindset of being a perpetual importer, it doesn't help.
Rightly said, sir. So, Professor Mohanty, our president, is asking, many countries have integrated various renewable energy sectors in order to optimize the energy sector in terms of cost and activity. In India, this is at a low level. What would be your thoughts?
No, I think, well, that's what exactly I said. Looking at electricity system as an integrated complex coming from very diverse sources is something which to be done more seriously than had happened. See, we have been used in past to look at only coal and hydro and some nuclear. But as far as the electricity system is concerned, coal and nuclear are very similar. Their characteristics may be different, but as a system, they are similar. And hydro also is kind of, a fast responding system. We had some gas, but availability of gas and cost of gas has been a problem, although I feel we should have more of gas. But rather than talking these numbers qualitatively, the point is absolutely right that we must create a mix which requires minimum capital cost and it costs minimum or creates minimum tariff to the consumer.
Dr. Rajgopal, I want to add here that actually this integration which is being talked about is regarding more of solar and the wind combinations. As a small country like Portugal has shown that by doing that, the cost of energy has actually come down. That's what we are talking about when the integration we are talking about. Sorry for the deviation from your normal practice.
Yeah, that is right. But as I said, if you notice that figure from the OECD report,
there is no other way.
In the current situation, this is right. But going forward, we should be aware of what is in store.
Okay.
But that point is right. We must see, today we are dependent on that modeling also to be done by people abroad. That is the problem. Only now slowly some new things have started coming up. But there is issue about the credibility, validity of this calculation.
Yes. So our gentleman friend, Mr. Panig, is usual questions regarding atomic energy. How safe is the nuclear energy produced in India? So
well, I'm sure you will expect me to say nuclear energy is very safe. But leaving that aside, if you go to Google and ask a question, fatalities per kilowatt hour produced, and compare all energy sources, you would find that the fatalities are minimum for nuclear. And this Google is full of this data. You can freely kind of access this data, and the challenge of nuclear is not safety. Challenge of nuclear is actually our own making. See, the fear of nuclear is so high because we always you talk about reactor, and in our mind the nuclear bomb images start flashing around. And so when there is an accident, there is a huge exodus. Now, for example, Fukushima accident, tsunami might have killed very large number of people, but the reactor accident has not killed anybody. No fatality because of reactor accident. But because of this large migration, evacuation, distress evacuation, quickly everybody to vacate, everybody to go away like that, and even that happens to lakhs of people, it creates psychosomatic effects, and that's a health burden, and that is a challenge. And that is because no, radiation is bad. I keep telling people, when you get affected by cancer, cancer is caused by many things, including radiation. But when it comes to curing cancer, you again take resort to radiation. So I think we must understand this. It's not that radiation is bad and high temperature is, in fire or thing, there could be fatalities, or some intense laser light, there could be serious problem. So it is that magnitude within it, and you must apply technology rightly, and then everything is fine. And in fact, there is evidence now that below a certain level, in fact, radiation has no adverse effect at all. Absolutely no adverse effect.
Whether it is
and the operations of nuclear reactors are way below that level. So there is no question of hazard being or harm being caused by nuclear facilities and things like that. But I suggest you don't go by what I say because I'm going to say this. So you can independently search it out and you will find that this is true.
Mr. Pranil Basu says, should we start looking up space for more energy? This is our territory is dwarfed by our immense population. So can space sector provide a new path like mining resources from moon? NASA SpaceX has vision for this. Shouldn't we focus on that? That is
I think the answer is an obvious yes.
Yes.
And why, in fact, if you see some of these, the so-called big business tycoons operating the space business in US, they are talking about colonizing Mars and colonizing moon and things like that. So they already see this as a business that Earth will become unlivable, and so the elite people will find, just like we have a farmhouse, a posh farmhouse somewhere away from the harms of city. There are people who are imagining that they will have their own kind of habitat away from Earth. Now, but this is far away. It's not going to happen anytime soon. But I think certainly Earth resources are limited. And so I won't put it beyond the stretch of imagination that mankind will have to look for resources beyond Earth.
Yes, sir. So another usual concern, one of my friend, Dr. Wadhavan, how best are we prepared to improve nuclear waste disposal?
Oh, that I think we are on a very strong wicket. The nuclear waste problem is because of there are some countries like United States, some country in Europe, who pursue what is known as open fuel cycle. You put uranium fuel in the reactor, and after use it comes out, and you declare that as a waste. And then the question is, what do you do of that waste? And that has remained an unresolved issue. But in India, we talk about closed fuel cycle. We reprocess and recycle. So most of the uranium, the plutonium that is produced, we recycle, and that takes care of almost 95% or 95% plus material which gets recycled, which otherwise would be waste. Even the remaining small part, India is one of the few countries where we have developed technologies to separate these products, minor actinides or long-lived fission products, and put them to use for energy production in the reactor, or put them to, for example, today we use cobalt for radiation processing and hygienization and several industrial processes. Tomorrow you can use cesium, and cesium, it comes out of it's a fission product in a nuclear reactor. And if you do that and do radiation processing using cesium, the cost would actually come down. So you not only recycle cesium, but you can do it at a much cheaper cost. Otherwise, you produce cobalt for doing so. So India is a country where we have these technologies and we're actually practicing closed fuel cycle. So this is a problem, unresolved problem of countries which are pursuing open fuel cycle. It's not an India's problem. And other aspects of waste management, the low-level waste and all, that is treated the traditional way, and it's not a big deal.
So can we take 2-3 more questions, or should we?
Maybe we can take another 5-7 minutes.
5.
We shouldn't hold back Dr. Kakodkar too much.
Yeah. So in fact, another question was, can use of cow dung in rural areas pose a challenge to the environment due to generation of high smoke? Oh, of course. That's
yeah, but I'm not talking about using it in that mode. I'm talking about using it through modern technologies.
Yes.
Where you produce clean gas or clean liquid, there is no air quality issue by use of that. I'm not talking about the oldish method of using the cow dung cake in the rural
Yes.
kitchen. That's terrible. But having said that, I think we need to also recognize that, as I said, this is something like 25-30% of the total energy basket in the country, and that's why I'm talking so much about biomass. So it's an important resource, and we should develop modern technologies and put them to decentralized use. Absolutely important.
Yeah.
You call it 1G ethanol, 2G ethanol, 3G ethanol, and of course, more technologies will come as we go forward. So I'm talking about those modern technologies.
Sir. And Dr. Chaturvedi, my friend, he is asking for nuclear energy contribution. Do you think our fast breeder reactor or thorium-based reactor will contribute in this requirement? Of course, yes.
Yes. Answer is yes. As I said, right now, the challenge before us is a very rapid deployment of nuclear capacity. So that is one strategy. But ultimately, we require energy, more energy. And through fast reactors, in the same uranium, we can get maybe 70, 80, 100 times more energy. And so, so fast reactors are important, and that development is going on and should go on, maybe at a much faster pace.
Yes, sir. And Dr. Jaya K. Panigrai is asking, do you think carbon capture technology will be having significance in future when we are emphasizing on clean and alternative source? Of course, yes.
Well, the point is, if you completely get rid of fossil energy, that is coal, oil, gas, if you get rid of that 100%, then maybe you won't require them on such a scale. But I have my doubts whether you will be able to do that, simply because, many of the industrial processes, they require, for example, steel. Professor Onkar Mohanty mentioned about that instead of using coke or carbon for making steel, now you have to make use of, let us say, green hydrogen for making steel. Now, this is a whole technology transition, but whether it will be possible under all cases of an industrial activities, there are things which are called hard to abate domains of industrial activity, and so it's going to take time. It's going to be a challenge, and at the same time, the life has to go on. The wheels of industry have to be kept turning. Economy has to make progress, and which would mean that there will be merit. Just like right now, said this is very expensive. Essentially, in the mind, we are talking about that. So we have to continue to use coal or oil. The same thing is here. Now the question is, if carbon capture and utilization is expensive, obviously it is going to create a penalty. But that penalty will vanish two ways. Either we completely get rid of the fossil energy, as I said, or make carbon capture and utilization competitive enough. It will be certainly a net addition, because carbon dioxide is a very stable molecule, and if you want to get into making use of that, you have to spend energy, and hence you have to spend money. So that's a challenge.
Yes, a challenge. There was another from Mr. Sudhir Bhattacharya. What is your view regarding liquefaction of solid fossil fuel for coal to oil and its future in the energy mix?
Well, I am a champion. I am a champion of doing that. The tragedy is, in India, coal gasification and then using that gas for converting to liquid fuel is a very common technology, decades old technology. But that requires better coal. Doing that with the high ash Indian coal has been a challenge. And I think even till today, it's a challenge. Even the new things we are talking about, they are talking about blending pet coke or things like that along with high ash coals. So I believe recently there has been some breakthrough on an experimental scale, but we need to do that. And as I said, I don't think we'll be able to get rid of fossil fuel completely. And just as what I said in the context of biomass, we don't want to use biomass in a manner where it will generate a lot of air quality issue, particulate issue. Similarly, we don't want to use coal, which will create a lot of issues, both in terms of air quality as well as carbon dioxide emission. So converting coal to liquid fuel will address one of the problem, and carbon capture and utilization will have to be superimposed on that. So that technology, I think, unfortunately, we have not been successful in developing that technology for Indian coal here. And that is again, same thing. Our mindset is we want to get it from elsewhere, and this technology does not exist. So India has not got it. And that is the fear I have in the context of this transition, that with our mindset, we will be left permanently underdeveloped. Because if you can't get that energy and put it to use, the corollary is will remain underdeveloped. And I hope that does not happen.
So I think we have to, in the next 5 minutes or
Yes, we'll finish the last
close.
one.
And the rest of the questions you can actually address to Dr. Kakodkar. If he thinks that some of them are good, maybe he will send the answers which you can give, because it's very difficult to tackle all questions.
All the questions. So the last one I will say that somebody, my friend Yasin Pastro, he says, would you please throw some light on contribution of International Solar Alliance to energy transition in India? That's a pretty broad.
Yeah, I think
well, I am not an expert on that, but I think in terms of creating a global understanding and creating more traction to solar energy, this is certainly good. What is being talked about, how it will work out, I don't know. But we have this problem of the day and night, and solar energy being available only during the day. But luckily, the area where you have day on the surface of Earth, it keeps shifting. So one of the point was, if you have a grid which sort of covers all countries of the world, then somewhere there will be solar energy, and it can be shared with all countries depending on their use. But I personally feel that's a far-fetched idea, because as I told you, what I said in Indian context, if I have to translate that in global context, and this has come out in an article by one of the authors from US, that advanced or developed countries who are in the saturated state of energy use, they can go through the transition, clean energy transition, and there is energy available through renewable energy to meet that transition. But there is a larger part of the world population where their development, their economy has to take place, has to grow, and that they have to decarbonize existing energy systems. But more importantly, they have to have much larger green energy systems to be added on. And if you take the total global requirements of that kind, there is not enough renewable energy. And so there will be shortage. So in such areas of shortage, how a common grid where even though it's dark here, I should benefit from solar energy from the opposite side of the globe. How it will work, I don't know. But I think we should explore all avenues. So We should be positive about people making efforts.
Yes, sir. Considering the time now, there are lot many questions more, but considering time now, we'll take a stop on the question and answer session.
Right.
Now, I over to Sujit to take over, please. Thank you, sir, for all the
Thank
questions.
you so much, sir, for your immense patience. You have time and again demonstrated that you are the authority in the subject. Now, I would like to again request our president to please offer his concluding remarks and also present a small e-memento as a token of love and respect to our distinguished speaker of this evening, Dr. Kakodkar.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Mahanta, please.
Yes, thank you, Sujit. Good evening to everyone once again. And I think what a lovely 1.5 hours it has been, listening to one of the authentic voices of India speaking to us on a subject over which there can be at least 7 days of deliberation. So that has been also demonstrated amply by Dr. Kakodkar. So 2 things come out. One is, of course, the subject is extremely widespread, but the way he has condensed it within a span of 1 hour or 45 minutes, that only shows the authority which he has on the subject itself. And the second thing, I think what the lecture has demonstrated is, contrary to many of the common beliefs, the entire subject is quite complex. It's really complex. And therefore, unless people apply their mind to the complexity also, otherwise they will end up in oversimplification. And there'll be many common, what you call the populist kind of either thoughts or principles they come out, both in terms of academic discussion as well as the administrative decisions. So therefore, what we have learned today is, I think the take-home directions have been given by Dr. Kakodkar, and a number of people today attended, close to about 100 people. Many of them are authorities in their own field. And energy is one sector which actually essentially affects each one of us. For instance, I belong to the automotive and the steel sector. In the steel sector, CCS has been one of the technologies which all the world over we have tried to implement, but very difficult. But it has to be implemented someday. And India has to develop its own technology, whether it is CGL and the coal to liquid, CTL, coal to gas is already there, and so on. But so, Dr. Kakodkar, I don't think we can thank you enough. So even then, we'll make an effort in thanking you by saying a wonderful talk. All of us, we enjoyed. And Odisha, as you know, apart from all the temples and the land of gods and goddesses, is also a land of great handicaps. And one of the handicrafts which Odisha is famous over the globe is the silver filigree, for which is quite famous.
Thank you.
And Mr.
Thank you.
Mahanti has been showing the Kodarak wheel all the time behind his screen. One such out of filigree. So please accept this.
Thank you.
Appreciation for the wonderful talk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let us give big hands.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. Would you like to say something?
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Now,
Dr. Kakodkar, would you like to say anything else?
No, I want to thank all of you. I enjoyed delivering this talk, and I hope you found it of some use. But,
yes, of course.
Let me express my gratitude to all of you.
Thank you. SGAT, I want to tell everyone present here, we have a standard practice that the Society for Geoscientists and Allied Technologies, not only do we express our gratitude, would like to also offer an honorary membership to Dr. Kakodkar from the society. He will accept. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's always
now I would request our General Secretary, Mr. Trilochan Mahanta, to offer formal vote of thanks. Mr. Mahanta, please.
Thank you, Sujit. At the outset, I, on behalf of the Society of Geoscientists and Allied Technologists, consider myself privileged enough to thank profusely an eminent scientist of our country, Padma Vibhushan Dr. Anil Kakodkar, Chancellor, Homi Bhabha National Institute, Chairman Rajiv Gandhi Science and Technology Commission, and former Chairman Atomic Energy Commission, who readily agreed to the request of our President Professor Omkarnath Mohanty and Dr. Rajgopal Mohanty with a very short notice to deliver the 6th lecture of our distinguished lecture series. The topic he chose, that is clean energy transition, is of paramount importance for the entire country in general and all the participants of this occasion in particular. He is an extremely busy person, and despite that, he could find time to make this evening memorable for all of us. The society is not only thankful to him, but also will remain indebted to him for his kind gesture. Thank you very much, Dr. Kakodkar.
Thank you.
I, on behalf of the society, would sincerely thank all the distinguished participants from different organizations who made it a point to attend this important lecture by Dr. Kakodkar, and without whom this event would not have been successful. Our President, Professor Omkarnath Mohanty, not only fixed the date with Dr. Kakodkar for the talk, but also monitored the minute details of the occasion on day-to-day basis. And even he himself went on to invite different organizations and persons of eminence to attend to this talk. The society is extremely thankful to you, sir. My thanks are also due to Sri Sujit Kumar Mohanty for anchoring the event, Sri Girija Prasad Mahapatra for briefing about the distinguished lecture series, and Dr. Rajgopal Mohanty for introducing the speaker and moderating the question and answer session. Last but not the least, other members of SGAT like Sri Alok Bihari Panigrai, our Vice President, Dr. B.M. Farooq, our EC member, both the Joint Secretaries, Sri Jivan Kumar Mahapatra and Sri Joy Kumar Hota, and our Treasurer, Sri Anup Kumar Rao, and the entire DLS team helped a lot to make this occasion a reality. My sincere thanks to all of them. Thank you all, sir.